This vlog is going to go longer than 4 minutes, but it's worth it.
This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
So this week we're talking about the book that changed everything. The book that inspired you to read, the book that inspired you to write, the book that changed your life in some way for the better. Okay, mine's a little weird, so you're going to have to bear with me, but there's a good story involved, so. I think I've told y'all before that I didn't want to be a writer when I was a kid. I didn't keep a journal, I didn't write stories. I always wanted to be a singer and a performer, so that's where the main focus of my creativity was. And I didn't start writing until about 4 years ago. But the reason I started writing, strangely enough, was because of this book, which is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Yeah, I know, it's totally random. So bear with me on this one. I was a big fan of the TV show, and I had a really, really good friend named Steve. Hi, Steve. Who was finishing up his last year at the Culinary Institute and had been doing a internship in Beverly Hills. And when he left to go back to New York, he got me a copy of this book, and he told me to read it, and he said I'd really like it. And I did, obviously. There's something about Bourdain's voice in this piece of narrative nonfiction that really struck a chord with me. I call it overeducated snark, I think. And strangely enough, it sounded like me. I mean, I don't know jack about the cooking industry or how to cook. But anyway, something about the voice of this really spoke to me, and I thought, I can do that. And of course, it became young adult fiction, not narrative nonfiction, but yeah, that was what inspired me to write. And here's the cool story. So just over a year ago, Anthony Bourdain was doing one of his talks at UCLA, and a friend of mine got me a VIP ticket, which meant that I got to go to the talk, and then I got to go to the reception afterwards where we got a copy of his new book, and he was there doing signings. I'm not a fangirl. I've lived in Los Angeles for a very long time. I used to work in the entertainment industry. I've met a lot of celebrities, a lot of musicians, a lot of sports athlete type people. So I don't get super, like, squee fangirl. But for some reason I was really nervous about meeting him. I think because he had inspired this change in my life. This was the week before Possess was going to acquisitions at Harper, and you know, you're like manic. Like it's the craziest nervous stress you've ever felt. So I'm waiting in line, and people in front of me are like, "Oh, Mr. Bourdain, in the episode in Shanghai, you said that the soup dumplings were the best at blah blah blah, but I've always found that they're better at blah blah blah." And he would sort of be like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll check that out next time I'm there." Sign the book, swig his beer. Then you had the sort of like skanky chicks dressed in really inappropriately short skirts and stripper heels who just wanted to take photos and like, "Oh, Mr. Bourdain, you're so much sexier in person." Boom. And then me, so I get up there and I say to him, "Mr. Bourdain, I wanted to thank you because I read Kitchen Confidential a few years ago and it inspired me to write, and I have a novel going to acquisitions at HarperCollins next week." And he sort of stopped and looked at me, like actually looked at me. I think when people are doing book signings or celebrities are meeting a lot of people, they sort of get this glazed over thing where everyone's kind of the same. But he looked at me and he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I'm 35 years old. I started writing a couple years ago, and I have a novel going to acquisitions next week." He put his pen down, and he put his hand out, and he said, "I want to shake your hand. That's one of the greatest things I've heard in a long time." So I shook his hand, and he signed my book, and that was that. He changed my life in a way that I didn't see coming, all because I read this book. And I think that is the power of the written word, where a book that has nothing to do with the genre that I write in could inspire an opera singer who was out of work to completely and totally change her life. So while Possess is technically dedicated to my mother, I think in many ways it's to Anthony Bourdain as well. Although he'll probably never read it because it's about a teen girl. Oh, maybe his daughter will read it in 10 years. Who knows? Anyway. Next week, I will have a substitute vlogger for me. One of our auditioners for the Rebels, in fact, our first audition that was sent in, Mr. Rick Lippman, will be subbing for me. And I will be up in San Francisco doing some library visits, information on my website. The following week, on the 21st, I'll be doing my San Francisco launch party at the Books Inc. at the Opera Plaza, 7 p.m. So if any of you are in the area and want to come out, I'd love to meet you. Other than that, I will see you in 2 weeks.